The Airbnb host's fourth knock of the evening came as I was getting ready for bed, and this time he didn't wait for me to answer. "Ian, just checking the radiator in there. It's been acting up all week." I pulled on a shirt and opened the door to find Marcus standing there with a toolbox covered in dust and paint splatters that looked like it hadn't been opened in years. He was maybe 50, with thinning hair and this eager smile that never seemed to fade. His palm was damp with sweat when we'd shaken hands earlier. I'd booked this place on Oak Avenue because I desperately needed the discount. Library aid salary doesn't stretch far, and with my car payment due next week plus utilities I was already behind on, I couldn't afford anything else in the area. Marcus had offered this Beacon Towers apartment for 60% off the usual rate. "The radiator seems fine," I said, glancing back at it. "It's been working perfectly." "Oh, you never know with these old units." Marcus squeezed past me into the room, his coffee-stale breath hitting my face as he brushed against me. He set his toolbox down with a deliberate clang and crouched by the radiator, making a show of checking valves that clearly didn't need checking. This was his fourth intrusion today. First, the forgotten phone charger behind the couch, which had vanished by the time he left. Then unwanted towels, during which he'd asked detailed questions about my dating life while standing uncomfortably close. The third visit involved checking window locks while he peppered me with questions about my living situation and work schedule. "You know, Ian," Marcus said, still pretending to examine the radiator, "I don't get many guests who stay the whole weekend. Most people just rush off." He turned to look at me, his eyes lingering too long on my face. "It's nice having someone who appreciates the space. I'm just here for some quiet reading time." "Reading, huh?" He stood up slowly, wiping his sweaty palms on his jeans. "What kind of books do you read, Ian?" The way he drew out each syllable of my name made it sound like he was tasting it. "Different things." "Look, I was actually getting ready for bed." "Oh, don't let me keep you." But he didn't move toward the door. Instead, he opened his toolbox and started pulling out random tools: a hammer, some screwdrivers, a wrench. "You know, I was thinking we should grab dinner tomorrow night. There's this great little place on Pine Road. My treat, of course." His hands were shaking slightly as he handled the tools, and a thin film of sweat had formed on his forehead despite the cool evening temperature. "That's really not necessary. I prefer to keep things simple when I travel." Marcus's smile flickered. "Simple, but we're getting along so well." His voice had taken on a pleading quality. "I thought you might enjoy some local company. I appreciate the offer, but I'm here to relax alone." "Alone?" His grip tightened on the wrench in his hand. "That's no fun, Ian. You seem like such a nice guy. It would be a shame to waste the weekend alone." "I really need to get some sleep now." Marcus started putting his tools away with deliberate slowness, each movement calculated to extend his time in my space. Of course. I'll just finish up here." He paused, wrench halfway into the toolbox. "By the way, I sometimes check on the unit during the night. For security purposes. Old building, you know. Lots of break-ins." My stomach dropped. "Check on it how?" "Just a quick peek to make sure everything's secure. I've got the master key, so I don't need to disturb you." His eyes were fixed on mine now, watching for my reaction. "You'll probably sleep right through it." "I'd prefer you didn't do that." Marcus's breathing had become more audible. "Well, it's my property, Ian. I have a responsibility." His voice hardened. "Besides, you got quite a discount on this place. I think a little flexibility isn't too much to ask." The discount. He was using my desperation against me, and we both knew it. I needed this cheap rate to make rent next month, and he was counting on that need to make me compliant. I understand it's your property, but I need privacy when I sleep. Privacy. His laugh was sharp and too loud. Ian, we're practically friends now. What's the big deal? He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the sweat beading on his upper lip and smell the sour coffee on his breath. I've been nothing but kind to you. I've given you a great rate. I've been friendly. His voice was rising. And now you're acting like I'm some kind of criminal. I backed up until I hit the wall. Marcus, I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. He pulled out his key ring, selecting the master key and holding it up where I could see it. His hand was trembling with excitement. I'll be back later to check on things. Don't try to block the door. After he left, I could hear him moving around the building, his footsteps stopping outside my door every few minutes. I sat on the bed, fully clothed, waiting. Around 2 a.m., I heard the key sliding into the lock. The door opened slowly. Marcus's silhouette filled the doorway, his breathing heavy and deliberate. He stood there for long moments, just watching the bed where I was pretending to sleep. Such a nice guest, he whispered, stepping into the room. I kept my breathing steady as he approached the bed. Through barely open eyes, I watched him reach toward me, his fingers extended. When his hand touched my shoulder, I exploded upward. I shoved him as hard as I could, sending him stumbling backward into the wall with a surprised grunt. "What the hell?" he started, but I was already past him, running for the door. Behind me, he shouted something about teaching me respect, but I didn't stop until I reached my car. My hands shook so badly I could barely start the engine. As I drove away, I saw Marcus standing in the building entrance, watching me leave. Even from a distance, I could see he was smiling. I spent the rest of the weekend at a motel that cost me money I didn't have, but some things are worth going into debt for. Working as a personal trainer means staying in different cities for client workshops, but the Airbnb host on Pine Road had an unusual request about the previous guest. "Listen, Isaac," Sarah Martinez said when she met me at Cedar Grove that weekend evening, constantly looking over her shoulder at the building. "There's something I need to mention. The previous guest, he won't leave." I pulled my gym bag from the trunk. "Won't leave? What do you mean?" "He was supposed to check out 2 weeks ago, but he's still there. He's..." She lowered her voice to barely above a whisper. "He's threatened me. Said if I call the police or try to force him out, he'll destroy the place and make sure I never rent to anyone again." Her hands were visibly shaking. "I can't afford legal fees or property damage right now." That should have been my cue to leave, but I'm not good at confrontation, and I'd already paid the deposit. Plus, Sarah seemed genuinely terrified. "Look, you'll have the main bedroom," she continued quickly. "He's mostly staying in the back room. Maybe if he sees I have other guests, he'll realize he needs to go." The apartment was immediately wrong. A coffee mug sat on the kitchen counter, still warm. Someone else's prescription bottles lined the bathroom counter. The refrigerator was packed with food I hadn't bought. "Trevor?" Sarah called out nervously. "The new guest is here." Heavy footsteps came from the back of the apartment, followed by a man's voice. "I told you not to bring anyone else here." Trevor Anderson appeared in the hallway, maybe 35, unshaven, wearing the same clothes he'd clearly slept in for days. But what made my skin crawl wasn't his appearance. It was his eyes. They were flat, cold, completely focused on me like I was prey. "You need to leave," he said without preamble. "Now." "This is Isaac," Sarah said quickly. "He's just staying for a few days while—" "I don't care what his name is." Trevor stepped closer, and I could smell unwashed skin and stale alcohol. "This is my place now. I've been here 3 months. I know every sound this building makes, every person who comes and goes. You're disrupting my routine." I looked at Sarah, hoping she'd stand up to him, but she was backing toward the door like a trapped animal. "Sarah, maybe we should—" I started. "Sarah's leaving," Trevor interrupted. "And so are you." He moved between me and the exit, his bulk filling the doorway. "Unless you want to find out what happens when people don't listen to me." There was something in his voice that made the threat feel very real. This wasn't just an angry tenant. This was someone who'd crossed lines before. "I've paid for this space," I said, trying to sound calmer than I felt. Trevor's laugh was harsh. "You paid her. I live here. See the difference?" He gestured around the apartment like he was showing off his domain. "I've got my routines, my space, my stuff everywhere. You're just some tourist who thinks money gives you the right to disrupt someone's life." He stepped closer, backing me against the kitchen counter. "Here's how this works. You leave right now, quietly, and nothing bad happens. You try to stay, and I make sure you regret it." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm explaining reality." His hand moved to his pocket, and I heard the distinct sound of metal, keys, or maybe something worse. "I've got nowhere else to go, which means I've got nothing to lose. You, on the other hand, probably have a nice life to go back to. Think about which one of us has more to lose here." Sarah had already fled. I could hear her car starting outside. "Look," I said, raising my hands. "Maybe we can work something out. Share the space temporarily." "Share?" Trevor's face darkened. "This isn't a negotiation. You don't belong here." He pulled his hand from his pocket, revealing a box cutter with the blade extended. "I've been living rough for months, sleeping in shelters, getting kicked out of places by people just like you. People with money who think they can push around people like me." My heart was pounding. This had escalated from a housing dispute to a life-threatening situation in seconds. "I don't want to push anyone around," I said. "I just need somewhere to sleep tonight." "Sleep in your car." He was holding the box cutter casually, but his knuckles were white. "Sleep in a hotel, sleep on the street. I don't care, but you're not sleeping here." I could see he wasn't bluffing. The desperation in his eyes, the way he held the blade. This was someone who'd been pushed past his breaking point, and I'd walked into the middle of his breakdown. "Okay," I said slowly. "You're right. I'll find somewhere else." Smart choice. But he didn't lower the blade. "Here's the thing, though. Now you've seen me. You know I'm here illegally. You could cause problems for me with your friend Sarah." My blood turned cold. "I won't say anything." "How do I know that?" He was breathing harder now, working himself up. "How do I know you won't call the cops the minute you leave? Tell them there's some dangerous guy squatting here? Because I don't want any trouble." Neither did I. His voice cracked. "I just wanted somewhere to stay while I got back on my feet. But people like you see someone like me, and you automatically think, problem that needs to be solved." He stepped closer, the blade now inches from my chest. "Maybe I should solve my problem first." I could see him making the decision, the calculation happening behind his eyes. He was convinced I'd bring the police, convinced I'd ruin what little stability he'd managed to create. In his mind, getting rid of me wasn't just about territory anymore. It was about survival. "Trevor, listen to me," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I understand you're in a tough situation. I'm not going to make it worse. You already made it worse by showing up." The blade was shaking in his hand now. "Now I have to deal with you knowing about me, knowing where I am." I realized talking wasn't going to work. He was past reasoning, stuck in a paranoid spiral where I represented every person who'd ever kicked him out, ever made him move on, ever treated him like a problem to be solved. "You're right," I said, raising my hands higher. "You're absolutely right. I shouldn't have come here." He relaxed slightly, thinking I was giving up completely. "I'll just grab my bag and—" I lunged sideways, away from the blade, and ran for the door. Behind me, Trevor shouted something about not letting me leave, but I was already in the hallway. He followed me, still holding the box cutter, but I had a head start, and I knew he was out of shape from months of rough living. I made it to the stairs and took them 3 at a time. "You can't run forever," he screamed from behind me. "I know what car you drive now." I didn't stop until I was in my car with the doors locked and the engine running. In the rearview mirror, I could see Trevor standing on the sidewalk, watching me drive away, the blade still in his hand. I found a hotel room and spent the night checking the locks on the door every few minutes. The next morning, I called Sarah to make sure she was okay. The number was disconnected. I still wonder if Trevor is living in that apartment and what happened to the next person who tried to rent it. My month-long Airbnb stay for the cleaning contract seemed perfect until the host family's adult son moved back home. I'm Jacob Garcia, and I clean houses for a living. When I got a month-long contract cleaning offices in Diamond Heights, I needed somewhere affordable to stay. The Airbnb on Cedar Lane looked ideal. Private room, good price, friendly hosts Jim and Carol Thompson. The first week went smoothly. They were respectful. Carol sometimes left me leftovers, and I felt like I'd found genuinely good people. Then their son came home. I was eating breakfast that second Monday when a car door slammed outside, followed by loud cursing. Through the window, I watched a guy in his late 20s pull suitcases from a beat-up sedan. He had his father's build, but none of his calm demeanor. Everything about his movement screamed anger. "Oh," Carol said behind me, her voice suddenly tight. "That's Danny. He's staying with us for a while." Danny Thompson burst through the front door like he owned the place. He was loud, throwing bags around, shouting for his parents. When Jim appeared from his office, he moved like he was approaching something dangerous. "Danny, we weren't expecting you until—" "Plans changed. Got evicted." Danny's voice carried that edge of someone used to getting his way through volume. He looked around the house, cataloging changes, then noticed me at the kitchen table. "Who's this guy?" "This is Jacob," Carol said quickly. "He's renting the upstairs room while he works locally." Danny stared at me like I was something that had crawled from a drain. "My old room?" "It hasn't been your room for 5 years," Carol said quietly. I stood, sensing family drama brewing. I should get to work. Danny watched me rinse my coffee mug, his eyes tracking my every movement. "What kind of work?" "House cleaning." "Huh." He said it like it explained everything he needed to know about me. When I came home that evening, Danny had taken over. Clothes everywhere, his food filling the refrigerator, gaming system on the main TV. "Sorry about the mess," Carol said, looking embarrassed. But it wasn't temporary. My labeled food disappeared. He played games until past midnight, and when I mentioned the quiet hours, he looked at me like I'd suggested he cut off his arm. "This is my house," he said without looking from his game. "You don't tell me what to do in my own house." When I tried talking to Jim, he just gave me a helpless shrug. "Danny's having a hard time. Maybe give him space to adjust." Over the next week, Danny actively targeted me. Hot water gone when I got home, cleaning supplies moved, laundry machine monopolized. Jim and Carol wouldn't intervene. They were afraid of their own son. The breaking point came on a Friday night. I'd had a long day and came home to find Danny had rearranged the living room furniture, blocking my path to the stairs. "Excuse me," I said, trying to squeeze past his chair. "Hold up." Danny didn't pause his game. "We need to talk about your lease. When does it end?" "I've got another week." "That's not going to work." He paused the game, turning to face me. I realized how much bigger he was than me. "I'm making changes. Can't do that with some stranger in my room. I'm paying rent. My parents agree to things they shouldn't." He stepped closer, and I could smell energy drinks and unwashed clothes. "I'm telling you to leave." "I've paid through next Friday." Danny's face darkened. "You don't know when you're not wanted. Taking someone's hospitality and throwing it back in their face." I backed toward the door. "I'm not." "Yes, you are." He stepped closer, backing me against the wall. "I've been patient, but you keep hanging around like some kind of parasite." I could hear Jim and Carol moving upstairs, but they weren't coming down. They were hiding from their own son. "I'll be gone next Friday, like we agreed." "No." Danny shook his head. "You'll be gone tonight, right now." "I'm not going anywhere. I have a right." That's when he grabbed my shoulder. His fingers dug in hard enough to leave bruises. "Right?" His face was flushed with anger now. "This is my house. I grew up here. I don't care about your rights." I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. "Danny, let go of me." "Or what?" He was enjoying the power now. "You'll call the cops? Tell them the homeowner's son asked you to leave his own house?" He grabbed my other arm and started dragging me toward the front door. "Time to go. My belongings are upstairs. I'll throw them out later." The casual way he said it, like my stuff was garbage, finally broke through my conflict avoidance. I twisted hard, breaking free, and ran for the stairs. If I could get to my room, grab essentials, figure out what to do next. "Where do you think you're going?" Danny shouted. I made it to the second floor, but he was right behind me. I got to my room and tried to close the door, but he slammed his palm against it. "You don't run from me in my own house." He filled the doorway, breathing hard. Behind him, Jim's voice finally spoke up. "Danny, what's going on?" "Nothing, Dad. Just helping our guest find his way out." "Maybe we should all calm down." "Stay out of this," Danny snapped without turning around. "This is between me and him." I looked at the window behind me. Second floor, but there was a porch roof below. "Look," I tried one last time. "Let me pack my things and I'll find somewhere else for my last week." Danny shook his head. "Too late. You should have left when I asked nicely." "When did you ask nicely?" His face twisted with rage.
Every day you stayed after I came home was disrespecting me and my family." He stepped into the room. "I was patient. I tried to be reasonable, but you kept pushing." I could see there was no reasoning with him. In his mind, my existence here was an attack. "Get out of my room," he said quietly. "I'm trying to pack." "Get out now!" He lunged at me, both hands reaching for my throat. I twisted away and grabbed a lamp from the nightstand. I didn't want to hurt him, just create space to escape. When I raised it defensively, he saw it as a threat. "You're going to attack me in my own house?" He came at me with everything he had, no longer trying to intimidate, but actually trying to hurt me. I swung the lamp to keep him back. It caught his shoulder and he stumbled, cursing. I ran for the window. The old window stuck for a moment. Danny was getting back up behind me, shouting threats. Then it opened and I was climbing onto the porch roof, not thinking about anything except getting away. "Get back here," Danny yelled from the window. I slid down the roof and dropped into the yard, twisting my ankle on the landing. Through the living room window, I could see Danny running back through the house, probably heading for the front door. I limped to my car as fast as I could, hands shaking. As I pulled away, Danny burst out the front door, his parents trying to hold him back. He stood in the street, watching me drive away. Even from a distance, I could see he was smiling. I never went back for my belongings. Jim called a few days later, apologizing, offering to pack my things, but I never returned the call. Some situations you just walk away from, even when it costs you. I learned that the people supposed to be in control can be just as trapped by someone else's anger. And I learned that family can be the most dangerous justification of all.